The deep silence of space carried a sound so faint that most instruments would have missed it. At the edge of Earth's listening station, rows of screens flickered with patterns of light and numbers. David, a young operator with a sharp mind and endless curiosity, leaned closer to his console. His fingers danced over the controls as he tried to isolate the signal. It was different from anything Earth had received before. "It's not like the usual cosmic noise," David said quietly. His voice was calm, but his heart raced. The sound repeated itself in patterns, almost like a song or a message. Dr. Mara Lynn, the lead scientist at the station, walked over. She had spent her life studying signals from the stars. "What do you have, David?" she asked, peering at the glowing display. "This one is repeating. The frequency isn't natural. It feels intelligent," he replied. He paused, studying the waveforms. "It's asking for help." Mara raised her eyebrows. "Help? From who?" David shook his head. "I don't know, but it's not human." The room fell silent. The hum of the station filled the space between them. Outside, the world continued as usual. Cities pulsed with lights and traffic, unaware that something extraordinary was unfolding in the quiet darkness of space. Mara touched a button and amplified the signal. This time, the pattern became clearer. The sound had rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, and underneath, faint pulses of language. Not any language humans could understand, but it was deliberate. Someone, or something, was reaching out. "Get the council on the line," Mara said. "This could be the first real contact." David nodded. He felt a thrill he had never felt before. All his training and experience had led to this moment. Humanity might be about to make its first step into the galaxy in a way no one had expected. Hours later, the room was crowded with scientists, engineers, and government representatives. They watched as David and Mara explained the signal. Models and screens displayed the waveforms, the pulses, and the repeating patterns. Experts debated. Some suggested it might be a trick of space, a random alignment of stars and radiation. Others feared it could be a trap. David stood quietly, observing. He felt that fear could not stop this moment. He remembered a story his grandmother once told him about explorers who crossed oceans and risked everything to reach new lands. This was the same, but on a scale humanity had never imagined. Finally, after hours of discussion, the council agreed to respond. A message was prepared in multiple languages and mathematical codes. Simple patterns were used to show intelligence and peace. David watched as the first human reply was transmitted into the stars. It carried hope, curiosity, and a promise that humanity would listen. Days passed with little response. The station staff worked tirelessly, analyzing the signal and preparing for possible contact. Then one night, just as David was about to take a break, a new burst of waves arrived. The signal had changed. It was no longer just a series of pulses. Now it carried structure. Mara rushed to his side. "They answered," she whispered, eyes wide with excitement. The team listened as the patterns unfolded. It was not a human language, but the intelligence behind it was undeniable. There was fear, and there was urgency. Someone was in trouble. Someone wanted help. David felt a mix of awe and responsibility. This was no longer theory or simulation. This was real. Beings from another world were reaching out, and humanity had a choice. Could they help? Could they risk everything to answer a call from the stars? Outside the station, the night sky stretched endlessly. Stars burned like tiny fires, each one a sun for a distant world. Somewhere among them, the source of the signal waited, counting on someone to respond. David looked at the screen and then at Mara. "We have to go," he said. Mara nodded. "Yes. If they need help, we cannot ignore it. This could change everything." The council quickly convened again. After tense debate, a decision was made. Humanity would respond not just with words, but with action. A team would be sent to investigate, to find the source, and to offer aid. Plans for the first interstellar mission were drawn in record time. Ships were checked, crews assembled, and navigation calculated. David was chosen to be part of the crew. His role as a signal analyst meant he could interpret whatever messages they might receive on the journey. Mara insisted he go, even though she worried about the dangers. "You are the one who heard the call first," she said. "You need to be there." The day the crew left, the station watched them vanish into the blackness of space. David stood at the window, heart pounding with excitement and fear. He thought about the unknown worlds they would face and the beings who had called out for help. Humanity's answer had begun. Somewhere across the stars, a faint light pulsed in the darkness, as if acknowledging that someone had heard. The journey to meet that light, and the beings who sent it, would change the galaxy forever. David turned away from the window, ready to take the first step. For the first time, humanity was reaching beyond Earth not just to explore, but to save. And that choice, he knew, would define them for centuries to come. The ship Hope's light glided silently through the blackness of space. Inside, the crew moved with purpose, each person focused on their role. David sat at the communications console, listening to the faint echoes of the alien signal. Every pulse felt urgent, a reminder that someone out there was counting on them. Captain Liam walked down the narrow corridor, observing the crew. "We are entering the coordinates now," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed a mix of excitement and concern. "Keep alert. We do not know what we will find." The bridge fell silent as the ship approached a distant star system. There, trapped near a dying sun, was a vessel unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Its shape was elegant, almost organic, glowing faintly with blue and green light. But the ship was damaged. Pieces of its hull were torn, and it drifted helplessly, like a wounded creature in space. David felt his chest tighten. "They are still alive," he whispered. The crew prepared a rescue shuttle. Mara and David joined the boarding team. They checked their suits and equipment carefully. Outside the window, the alien ship loomed larger, its strange lights flickering, as if it were aware of their approach. When they docked, the airlock opened with a hiss. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit. Strange symbols lined the walls, glowing softly. David felt a shiver of awe. This was not just a ship. It was a home, a place full of history and life. Suddenly, movement appeared ahead. The crew froze. Small, luminous figures stepped into view. Their eyes shone like liquid stars, and their bodies were thin but graceful. They looked fragile, yet there was intelligence in every gesture. One of them stepped forward. It raised a hand in a gesture of greeting. David and Mara mirrored it carefully, hoping to show peace. The alien spoke in a series of musical tones, and the translator device began to hum. Slowly, words appeared on the screen. "Help! Please! Trapped! Enemies near!" Mara's eyes widened. "They are in danger! They need us immediately!" The crew moved quickly, helping the aliens onto the shuttle. Some of the beings seemed scared of the humans at first, but David spoke gently, using calm gestures. Soon, the aliens began to trust them. One of the rescued beings, who introduced herself as Nira, stayed close to David. Her glowing eyes reflected curiosity and hope. Back on Hope's light, the aliens were given medical attention and food. The crew learned more about them. They were called the Arivan, a peaceful species whose empire once stretched across many star systems. But now, most of their people had been hunted by a cruel enemy, the Draxan, who destroyed their homes and enslaved their populations. Nira explained, her voice trembling, that the distress call was sent as a last hope. The Arivan never believed anyone would answer. We thought we were alone, she said. No one ever helped before. David felt a surge of emotion. Humanity had arrived at the right place at the right time. But he also understood the weight of responsibility. The galaxy was larger and darker than they had imagined, and the beings they saved were only the beginning. Captain Liam gathered the crew. We cannot just take them home, he said firmly. The Draxen are still out there. They will follow. We need a plan to protect these people. Mara added, We also need to understand their technology. Their ships are advanced in ways we have never seen. Studying them could save countless lives. David watched Nira, who hovered near the windows, staring out at the stars. She seemed to understand more than anyone else the dangers ahead. We will help you, David said softly. You are safe with us. Nira looked at him, a faint glow of gratitude in her eyes. She did not speak, but the gesture was clear. Trust had begun to form. The crew held a meeting to discuss their next move. They decided to take the Arivan survivors to a nearby uninhabited system where they could repair the alien ship and prepare defenses. Meanwhile, communications were sent back to Earth, explaining the situation. Humanity had officially become involved in an alien conflict. As the shuttle moved toward the safe system, David studied the stars around them. He realized that the galaxy was full of unknown dangers, but also full of possibilities. The Arivan had welcomed them into their lives, and in return, humanity had the chance to show courage, intelligence, and compassion. For the first time, David understood what it meant to be part of something larger than himself. They were not explorers simply observing the galaxy. They were protectors, messengers, and allies. Their choices would ripple across countless worlds. That night, in the quiet of the ship, David and Nira sat near the observation window. She pointed at a distant planet, its surface glowing softly. He nodded, understanding that this was more than a journey. It was the beginning of a partnership, a bond that could change the fate of many species. As Hope's light sailed further into the unknown, the crew felt both fear and hope. The stars stretched endlessly before them, each one a sun for distant worlds. Somewhere in that vast darkness, the Draxen waited. But so did courage, intelligence, and humanity's unwavering will. David looked at the glowing eyes of the Arivan survivors and felt a quiet determination. Humanity had answered the call. Now, it was time to prove they were worthy of the trust given to them. The galaxy would soon know that humans were not just observers. They were a force capable of defending the helpless and standing against tyranny. And the first step of that journey had just begun. The safe system where Hope's light landed was quiet and still. Small asteroids drifted past, and distant suns cast faint light on the crew's temporary base. The Arivan survivors stepped carefully onto the ground. Their luminous eyes reflected both relief and sorrow. This was the first time many of them had been away from the wrecked ship in weeks, yet their expressions carried a shadow of loss. David walked beside Nira, listening as she spoke softly. Our empire was vast, she explained. Many stars, many worlds, all united. But the Draxen came. They hunted us, destroyed our homes, and took our people. We could not fight them. We were too peaceful, too trusting. David nodded, trying to imagine a galaxy filled with such terror. We will help you, he said. You are safe now, and we will do everything we can to protect you. Nira looked at him, a faint glow of hope appearing in her eyes. You are the first to answer our call. No one else would come. Captain Liam gathered the crew in the makeshift command center. Maps of the Draxen fleets, as far as the Arivan could remember, were spread across the table. We need to understand the enemy, Liam said. If we cannot protect these people, we will fail. And if we fail, many more will suffer. Mara studied the maps closely. The Draxan have technology that is different from ours. Their ships are fast and heavily armed, but they have weaknesses. They rely on fear and control. If we can protect the Arivan and plan carefully, we can find ways to resist them." David listened and thought about the signal that had first brought them here. It had been a desperate call, and now it was clear why. The Arivan had lost so much, and yet they still survived. Their courage was quiet but powerful. Over the next few days, the humans and Arivan worked together. They repaired parts of the alien ship, shared knowledge, and learned about each other's ways. The Arivan taught the humans to read the strange symbols and understand the energy systems of their vessels. David found himself fascinated by their techniques. Their science was advanced, but unlike human methods, it was based on balance, harmony, and patience. One evening, as the stars turned slowly overhead, Nira approached David. "The Draxan do not just destroy ships," she said quietly. "They destroy hope. They want everyone to believe that resistance is impossible. Many Arivan gave up long ago, thinking no help would come." David felt a chill at her words. He realized that this mission was not just about technology or battles. It was about courage, unity, and showing that even the smallest acts could matter. Humanity's presence was already giving the Arivan a chance to hope again. The crew also discovered messages hidden in the wrecked Arivan ship. Journals, recordings, and maps told stories of planets lost, families separated, and civilizations destroyed. The scale of the Draxan's cruelty was overwhelming. Yet through it all, David noticed a recurring theme. The Arivan refused to give up entirely. They survived even in the darkest times. Captain Liam called another meeting. "We cannot remain here forever. The Draxan will eventually discover us. We need to move, to prepare defenses, and to understand how to fight back." Mara agreed. "We can combine human strategy with Arivan knowledge. Their ships are powerful, but they need guidance, and we have the creativity and unpredictability that the Draxan do not expect." David watched as the crew worked side by side with the Arivan. Trust was growing slowly. Humans learned about the Arivan culture, their love for music, light, and art. In return, the Arivan studied human methods, fascinated by the way they adapted quickly to any situation. The partnership was beginning to take shape. One night, David and Nira stood on a ridge overlooking the base. Small fires glowed where humans and Arivan gathered. "You have given us hope," Nira said softly. "Without you, many would have given up completely." David looked at the stars and nodded. "Hope is the first step," he said, "and we will take the next steps together." Suddenly, the monitors at the base lit up with a warning signal. A distant fleet was approaching. The Draxan had detected activity in the system. Their ships moved quickly, dark shapes cutting through space, engines glowing red. Captain Liam immediately ordered all personnel to battle stations. Humans and Arivan worked together seamlessly, preparing defensive shields and weapons. The Arivan, who had once been helpless, now stood ready, guided by humans, their fear replaced by determination. David felt his pulse quicken. This was the first test, the first real encounter with the enemy. They had prepared as much as possible, but nothing could replace courage in the face of danger. Nira touched his arm lightly. "We are ready," she said. Her eyes shone brighter than before. "We will not run." David nodded, feeling the same determination rising within him. Humanity had answered the distress call, and now they were part of a larger story, one that would decide the fate of many. As the Draxan fleet drew closer, the humans and Arivan stood united. Ships powered, weapons ready, minds focused. In that moment, David understood that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the will to act despite it. And so, at the edge of a distant system, the first chapter of a new struggle began. Humanity was no longer distant observers. They were allies, defenders, and a force that could inspire hope in even the darkest corners of the galaxy. Back on Earth, the news of the Arivan rescue spread quickly. Leaders gathered in the largest council chamber ever assembled. Screens displayed images of the alien vessel, the luminous survivors, and maps of the Draxan threat. Humanity faced a decision unlike any before. Some council members argued for caution. "We do not fully understand this species," one said. "Engaging in a war that is not ours could cost countless lives. We risk everything for strangers we have never met." Others spoke with urgency. "We cannot ignore the call for help. If we have the power to protect the innocent, we must act. Humanity is defined by courage, by the will to stand against cruelty. This is our chance to show that to the galaxy." David watched the discussions from a secure room, listening closely. His heart pounded with a mixture of fear and hope. He remembered the Arivan, fragile but determined, who had trusted humans when no one else would. He remembered Nira's glowing, eyes filled with hope and gratitude. Dr. Mara Lynn stood beside him. "David," she said quietly, "we cannot stay on the sidelines. We have seen what they suffer. If we do nothing, their world ends, and a part of our honor ends too." David nodded, understanding her meaning. Humanity's choice was more than political. It was moral. They had been given a chance to make a real difference, to stand for what was right, and to prove that courage and compassion could shape the future. After hours of debate, the council reached a decision. Humanity would send a fleet to assist the Arivan. Ships would carry weapons, supplies, and personnel trained in combat and strategy. Scientists would work with the Arivan to repair their ships, while diplomats would foster alliances with other species under Draxan threat. The decision was met with both relief and tension. Citizens across Earth watched in awe as the first human fleet prepared to depart. Hope's Light and several other vessels were upgraded for long-range travel. Crew members trained relentlessly, learning both human and Arivan technologies. Captain Liam called the crew together before the mission began. "We have chosen to act," he said. "We will face dangers unknown, enemies stronger than anything we have faced before. But we will act with courage, intelligence, and unity. Remember, this is not just a mission, it is a statement about who we are as a species." David felt a surge of pride. They had not been forced into this choice. They had chosen it because it was right. Humanity was stepping into the galaxy not as observers, but as defenders. Meanwhile, Nira and the Arivan began to prepare for the journey ahead. Their once damaged ship was repaired with human help. Together, they planned strategies, combining their advanced understanding of energy systems with the human ability to think unpredictably. One evening, David and Nira stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars. "Do you think Earth truly understands what they are committing to?" Nira asked softly. David nodded. "They will learn. They already have. Courage grows when faced with responsibility. Humanity is ready, even if they do not yet realize it." Nira smiled faintly. "I never thought anyone would care enough to act. We have been alone for too long. But now, hope burns again." The fleet prepared to depart. Families said quiet goodbyes, knowing that those who left might never return. Yet, there was determination in every heart. The journey ahead would be dangerous, but it would also show the galaxy what humanity was capable of. As Hope's Light and the other ships left Earth's orbit, David reflected on the path they had chosen. They were heading toward unknown worlds, toward danger, but also toward the chance to save lives and change history. Humanity had made its choice. They would not remain distant or indifferent. They would act. Captain Liam addressed the crew over the intercom. "Remember why we are here. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for the right to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Every choice we make will echo across the stars. David felt the weight of those words. The mission was no longer just a rescue. It was a declaration that humanity would stand for justice and hope in a galaxy often ruled by fear. As the stars stretched endlessly ahead, David glanced at Nira, whose glowing eyes mirrored his own resolve. Together, humans and Erevan would face the challenges to come. They had chosen courage, and that choice would shape the future of countless worlds. Somewhere far beyond, the Draxan were stirring. They had sensed the growing presence of humans in their territories, and their curiosity turned into concern. They had not expected a species from a distant blue planet to answer the call of the Erevan, and soon they would learn that humans were not easily intimidated. David returned to the bridge and sat at his console. The stars passed by in streaks of light as the fleet traveled at high speed. Every pulse of the engines, every flicker of the displays, reminded him that this was only the beginning. Humanity had chosen to act. They had chosen to protect, to defend, and to inspire hope. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The fleet moved cautiously through the edge of a distant system. The stars were cold and bright, casting long shadows across the ship's hulls. David sat at his console, monitoring sensors and communications. Every beep, every signal could mean danger. The Erevan crew worked alongside the humans, adjusting shields and checking weapon systems. The tension was palpable, but so was determination. Captain Liam stood on the bridge, watching the displays. "Stay alert," he ordered. "We do not know where the Draxan will strike first, but they will notice us soon. Be ready." The silence of space was broken by a sudden flare on the main screen. Dark shapes appeared far off in the distance. "Draxan ships," Mara said, her voice steady but urgent. "They are coming." David's fingers moved quickly over the controls. The fleet immediately went into defensive formation. Hope's Light and the Erevan vessels aligned to protect the smaller ships and ensure a strong front line. Nira's voice came over the comms, calm but precise. "We have trained for this. Trust your instincts." The Draxan fleet moved with precision, their ships dark and angular, bristling with weapons. They fired warning shots, small bursts meant to intimidate. The human and Erevan crews responded with shields and evasive maneuvers. Explosions lit up the void, tiny sparks against the vast blackness. Captain Liam gave orders in a clear voice. "Target their engines first. We need to slow them down. Focus fire on the smaller vessels that flank us. Keep the formation tight." David watched as his team executed the commands. Humans and Erevan worked seamlessly, a combination of strategy and skill. Small bursts of light from energy weapons streaked across space, striking the Draxan ships with precision. Some of the enemy vessels faltered, their movements disrupted. Mara leaned over David's shoulder. "Their weapons are powerful, but predictable. Use speed and clever angles. They underestimate creativity." David nodded, guiding the energy cannons toward weak points in the Draxan ships. He felt a thrill he had never experienced before. Every move mattered. Every decision could save lives. Nira directed her people to support the human ships. Her calm presence helped the Erevan maintain focus despite fear. The alliance between the two species was becoming stronger with each passing moment. The battle intensified. One Draxan cruiser charged toward Hope's Light, its weapons ready to fire. Captain Liam acted quickly, giving orders that used the ship's agility to their advantage. With a combination of rapid maneuvers and precise strikes, the cruiser's engines were disabled before it could land a direct hit. David felt a surge of relief, but he knew the danger was not over. Another group of Draxan ships approached from the opposite side, attempting to encircle the fleet. "We need a distraction," David said. He remembered a maneuver from training simulations, a risky but clever tactic. Captain Liam nodded. Do it. Now. Using Hope's light as bait, a small squad of Arivan ships darted toward the Draxan formation, firing bursts of energy to confuse the enemy. The Draxan hesitated, unsure of the humans' strategy. David coordinated the fleet, guiding larger ships to strike while smaller vessels distracted. The tactic worked. The Draxan fleet became disorganized, their formations breaking apart. Humans and Arivan moved with precision, targeting the disarrayed ships. Explosions lit the void, and pieces of enemy vessels drifted into the darkness. Nira's voice came over the comms, steady and proud. "You are clever, humans. Together, we can do more than we imagined." David felt a rush of pride. This was more than a battle. It was proof that humanity could stand against a threat far greater than anything Earth had faced. They were resourceful, brave, and willing to risk everything to protect the helpless. The battle continued for hours. The fleet worked tirelessly, striking when possible, evading when necessary. The Draxan had strength, but they had not counted on determination and unity. Humans adapted quickly, combining technology with creativity. Arivan knowledge guided strategy, while human ingenuity allowed unexpected moves. By the time the battle ended, the Draxan had retreated. The surviving ships limped away, engines smoking, their confidence shaken. The human and Arivan fleet regrouped, exhausted but victorious. Captain Liam addressed the crew. "This was our first real encounter. We have won not just by firepower, but by courage, intelligence, and teamwork. Remember this feeling. Remember what we are capable of." David looked at Nira, whose eyes glowed softly with relief. "We did it," he said quietly. Nira smiled. "Yes, and this is only the beginning. The Draxan will return, but they will remember today. They will remember that humans are not easy to defeat." The fleet spent the next hours repairing damage, recharging shields and tending to the wounded. The victory had come at a cost, but it had proven that the alliance could work. Humans and Arivan together could stand against an enemy that once seemed unstoppable. David gazed out at the stars. He thought of Earth, the call that had started everything, and the courage that had carried them through the battle. Humanity had answered a distant plea, and in doing so, had begun to shape the galaxy. He knew more challenges were ahead, more battles to fight, but for the first time, he truly believed that humans could make a difference. The first victory was theirs, and it was a promise of what they could achieve when they acted with courage, intelligence, and unity. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but for the first time, the darkness seemed less threatening. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy had begun to change. The aftermath of the first battle left the fleet weary but determined. Humans and Arivan worked side by side, repairing ships, sharing supplies, and tending to the wounded. Each day brought a deeper understanding between the two species. Trust, once fragile, was growing into something strong. David moved through the corridors of Hope's Light, checking on both human and Arivan crew. He saw a small group of Arivan learning human combat tactics, while humans studied the alien energy systems that powered their vessels. Every lesson was a step toward unity, and every shared task strengthened their bond. Nira approached him with a small device in her hands. "We can improve the shields on your ships with this," she explained. "It will help protect everyone in the fleet." David took the device, examining it. "This is incredible. With your guidance, we can face the Draxan more confidently." Nira's eyes glowed faintly. "We have hope now because of you. Without humans, many would have given up completely. We trust you." David felt a surge of pride. Humanity had answered the call, but it was more than that. They had inspired hope in a species that had nearly lost everything, and in return, the Arivan offered knowledge, friendship, and loyalty. Captain Liam called a meeting in the command room. Arivan leaders joined the humans, and together they discussed strategy. The Draxen will return, Liam said firmly. They will not forget that we defended the Ariven. We need a plan that uses all of our strengths, Mara added. We have combined technology now. Human unpredictability and Ariven precision can be a powerful combination. We can train more Ariven to operate ships alongside our crews. Unity will be our greatest weapon. David observed as the Ariven shared their knowledge freely. They taught the humans about their energy shields, weapon systems, and even ways to communicate silently over vast distances. In return, humans taught the Ariven tactics for surprise attacks, evasive maneuvers, and teamwork under pressure. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. The fleet moved cautiously, always aware that the Draxen could strike again. Yet, in the quiet moments, there were small acts of friendship. Humans shared meals with Ariven, telling stories of Earth, while Ariven shared songs that filled the ship with light and sound. These moments reminded everyone why they were fighting, to protect life and hope. David spent time with Nira, learning more about her people. "Why did the Draxen destroy your empire?" he asked one evening. Nira looked out at the stars. "They value strength above all. They do not understand peace or cooperation. Any civilization that resists them becomes a target. Many worlds fell before ours. We survived, but barely." David nodded. "Then together, we can show them that unity is stronger than fear. We can protect your people and others who cannot defend themselves." Nira smiled faintly. "I believe that now. Before humans came, hope was a memory. Now it is alive again." Weeks passed as the fleet trained and strengthened bonds. Humans and Ariven began to trust each other completely. Young Ariven learned to operate human ships, while humans adapted to alien technology with remarkable speed. One day, during a routine exercise, a young Ariven pilot named Kira asked David, "Why did humans come to help us when no one else would?" David thought for a moment. "Because helping others is who we are. It is not about glory or reward. It is about standing up for what is right, even when it is dangerous. That is the choice humanity made, and we will not stop." Kira nodded, understanding more than words could say. Around them, the fleet moved in harmony, humans and Ariven working as one. It was not perfect, but it was powerful. It was hope made, real. Then, sensors picked up movement in a distant system. A small Draxen fleet had been detected, scouting near a neutral planet. Captain Liam called everyone to action. "This is our first real test together since the last battle. Humans, Ariven, we fight as one. We protect each other, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves." David felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. The training, the shared knowledge, the trust between humans and Ariven. It all mattered now. They would face the enemy with courage, intelligence, and unity. As the fleet moved into position, Nira hovered near David. "We fight together," she said simply. David nodded, feeling the bond that had formed between their species. "Together," he agreed. The stars around them stretched endlessly, the vast emptiness filled with possibility. Humanity had answered a distant call, and in doing so, they had built more than alliances. They had forged trust, friendship, and hope. The Draxen were coming, but they would not find weakness. They would find courage, they would find determination, and they would find that humanity, standing with the Ariven, was a force unlike any they had ever faced. David looked at the glowing eyes of the Ariven around him and felt a deep certainty. Bonds forged in fire and tested in battle would hold strong. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had become a light in the darkness, a beacon of hope that would inspire many worlds to stand together. The fleet moved through a dense asteroid field, a natural shield against detection. David and the crew knew the Draxen would not expect an attack from this angle. Humans and Ariven worked together, their movements precise, coordinated, and fearless. The final confrontation had arrived. Captain Liam addressed the fleet over the comms. Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for every world under threat. Stay focused, stay calm, and remember why we are here. Humanity stands with the Arriven, and together, we will change the course of the galaxy. David felt his pulse quicken. This was the moment that would define everything. He glanced at Nira, whose glowing eyes reflected determination and trust. "We will win," she said quietly. The Draxan fleet appeared suddenly, their dark ships cutting through the void like predators. They were larger, faster, and more numerous than the last encounter. But the humans and Arriven were ready. Shields hummed, weapons powered, and every crew member waited for the signal to act. Captain Liam gave the order. Engage! The fleet surged forward. Energy beams streaked through space, striking the Draxan ships with precision. The humans used unpredictable maneuvers, dodging incoming fire while returning blasts that disrupted enemy formations. The Arriven contributed their advanced technology, reinforcing shields and amplifying energy weapons. David coordinated the communications between ships, ensuring humans and Arriven acted as one. Small vessels darted between the larger ships, targeting weak points and creating openings. Each strike was carefully calculated, each movement deliberate. Nira directed her people to create energy barriers that deflected Draxan fire. The combined efforts of humans and Arriven created chaos for the enemy, breaking their formations and forcing confusion. One massive Draxan warship advanced, its weapons ready to annihilate the fleet. Captain Liam held steady. "Focus fire on the engines. Disable them before they can strike," he ordered. David and Mara guided the fleet, aiming carefully. The warship shuddered under the coordinated assault, engines sparking and failing. The Draxan ship slowed, then stopped, floating helplessly among the stars. The rest of the fleet followed the lead. Smaller Draxan ships attempted to retreat, but humans and Arriven pursued with relentless precision. One by one, the enemy vessels fell or fled, unable to match the unity and determination of their opponents. Amid the battle, David noticed Nira, coordinating a group of young Arriven pilots, teaching them to anticipate human tactics while using their own skills. It was a moment of harmony in the chaos, proof that cooperation could overcome fear and destruction. Hours passed, and the Draxan forces were finally in retreat. The fleet regrouped, surveying the battlefield. Smoke and debris drifted in the void, but the humans and Arriven remained intact. The victory was decisive, a demonstration of strength and unity. Captain Liam addressed the fleet. "Today we have done more than defeat an enemy. We have shown that courage, intelligence, and trust can overcome even the greatest threats. Humanity has proven that we can be a force for hope in the galaxy." David felt a deep sense of pride and fulfillment. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious, not through sheer power, but through cooperation, ingenuity, and heart. Nira approached him, her glow brighter than ever. "You humans are remarkable," she said. "You answered a call that others ignored. You gave us hope when we had none. Together, we have changed everything." David smiled. "It was not just humans. It was all of us, humans and Arriven, together. This is only the beginning. We will continue to protect the helpless, to inspire courage, and to stand against tyranny wherever it exists." As the fleet set course for a nearby Arriven colony, messages were sent across the galaxy. News of the battle spread quickly, reaching distant worlds under Draxan threat. The tale of humans standing with the Arriven inspired countless species to resist, to fight for their homes, and to believe that courage could change the galaxy. David looked out at the stars, their light reflecting. In the eyes of the Arriven crew, each star was a world with potential, a life to protect, and a future to shape. Humanity had answered a distant call, and that choice had created ripples that would be felt across countless systems. Captain Liam stood beside David. "We have done something extraordinary," he said. "This victory is not the end. The galaxy is still dangerous, but we have shown that unity and courage can overcome even the greatest threats." David nodded, feeling the weight and the promise of those words. They had saved lives, formed lasting bonds, and proved that humanity was capable of greatness. The Arivan were safe for now, but the real victory was the trust and hope they had inspired. Nira joined them, and for a moment, the humans and Arivan simply looked at the stars in silence. It was a moment of peace, a promise of a brighter future. The galaxy had witnessed the courage of a single species answering a call for help. That spark of action had grown into a flame of hope that could never be extinguished. And as hope's light led the fleet into the stars, David realized that humanity's choice to act, to help, and to unite had changed everything. The galaxy would never forget the day when humans answered a distress call and proved that courage, compassion, and intelligence could alter the course of history forever. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, filled with infinite possibilities. Humanity had arrived, and with them, hope had returned to a galaxy that had once known only fear.